you're training 5 days a week, you're eating your protein, you're tracking your lifts, but you still feel like you're not making much progress and everything's plateaued, then stay tuned, because in today's video, what we're going to do is break down what could be causing this sort of plateau to happen and how to actually overcome it. And as always, this has been inspired by a question, and here it is. Hi TJ, I'm struggling to see any change in my body. I've been training for around a year and a half, but I would say the last 3 to 4 months that all progress has stalled. Strength and gains. My diet is pretty good and I train 5 days per week, so I'm not sure why I haven't seen more muscle growth happen. Let's be real, you're still somewhat in the newbie phase, so you shouldn't be hitting a plateau so soon. So here's the things that I would probably recommend. So number one, sometimes you have to step back before you can step forward, and by that I mean that you mentioned that your strength gains has already started to plateau, which says to me you've probably been trying to push it way too hard to try and up the weights, because yes, progressive overload is the foundation of muscle growth. However, a lot of people only really chase lifting heavier weight when there's many other ways to do it. One thing in particular that I did that I found the most progress in after I've been training around, I think 3 or 4 years, I decided to actually step back, which was reducing the weight and executing the form on these exercises way better, because obviously when you're chasing strength, sometimes your form may slip, and you'd be surprised how much it slips, because in the moment when you're doing the exercise, you can't really tell. Which leads me into the next tip, which would be to go on Amazon and purchase one of those small little stands that you can put your phone in, and I would record yourself when you're doing the exercises, specifically the ones that you want to progress in, probably like your bench, leg press, squat, rows, all those things. I'd record it, because you'd be very surprised, as I mentioned earlier, that in the moment you may think you're doing it so controlled in the perfect form ever, but when you put the little camera down, it don't lie. When you watch it back, you'll be like, oh damn, I'm shaking quite a bit, I'm dipping forward, the form was a bit shaky overall, and it's not that great. So I would personally say get that little stand. They only cost like what, £8-10 off Amazon. Then record these various exercises and make sure you're doing it correctly. The next thing you mentioned is that you said that your diet is pretty good. The one thing you have to remember is everything's all subjective. I would personally, if you don't already, track your calories and look at the foods in totality and see how good it is. Not just the protein, even though protein is vitally important. Sometimes a lot of people will hyper fixate on the amount of protein they eat per day and not the quality of the meals. For example, I have a client, he will hit the protein, but his quality of meals is often not great. I have to call him up on it. He will do things such as he'll buy 2 packs of cooked ham, which is like deli meat for those in America, and it's like 600 grams of ham, and he will slap that in a sandwich and just eat it, and that'll basically allow him to hit like a good chunk of protein in one sitting. But it's not really a nutritionally dense meal. It's very poor. Sometimes outside of protein, you need to make sure the food you're eating is quality and actually fuel you day to day. It matters more so, I will say, when you're trying to get lean and reveal the gains. However, year round, we should all aim to try and have a fairly balanced diet, because it is going to be better for your physique long term and your health. So I'd make sure that your version of pretty good is actually pretty good. Maybe run it by someone that you may know that already is in the gym, that is fairly good with their nutrition, or even just pay a coach or nutritionist to just look over it, something along those lines, because chances are that you're pretty good, especially after only a year of lifting, isn't that great. My diet, even 2-3 years into lifting, was still pretty shit compared to what I would say it is right now. So I'd definitely say that is something you probably may need to hone in a little bit more. You said that you're not seeing any gains. I would make sure that you are actually taking progress photos. I would take progress photos at least once every 2 weeks, similar lighting, similar stance, and actually do them flex, do them relaxed, and do them properly. So every other month or so, you can probably have a better look at it. And then if your eyeballs are still pretty shit, because you need to have gym eyes to kind of notice small changes. If you have a friend, as I mentioned earlier, that's more experienced, send it in to them and see if they can see any sort of changes. But the chances are that you're probably just eyeballing it. You take off your top in the morning, you look in the mirror and just say, oh, I don't really see much more gains. And then that's basically your whole consensus that you're not seeing progress. Whereas there's probably small changes you can't tell. If you want to be really extra, you can always invest in measuring tape. These is dead cheap. You can buy them for like £1 or something from like a cheap store. Measuring tape does not lie. It's more effort, which is why a lot of people don't use them. However, you tracking the size of your biceps, your waistline, your back, your lats, and you need to go on Google and figure out how to actually track your weight measurements properly. But like once you start doing that, I guarantee you'll probably see more minute changes than you would if you just look in the mirror. It even works better in the progress photos, but it is more effort. So I would say if you're someone that truly feels like you're not seeing progress, do the progress photos first. If you still don't see progress, then I would definitely go into measuring tapes. And before I get into the last main one, I would quickly just mention, make sure your sleep is fairly good. Try and get at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night. It just will help you all around. Now we're going to address the last bit you mentioned, which is you train 5 days per week, so you're not sure why muscle growth isn't happening. In the same vein as the first tip, I would say that someone that's trained under 2 years, you may not need to train 5 days a week. Like if you love it, then fair enough. But in this specific instance of you saying that you're feeling plateaued out and you're stalling, what I would personally do is scale it back 1 day. I would readjust your routine, maybe to an upper body, lower body twice a week. So you're repeating it, upper body, lower body, rest, upper body, lower body. So by the time it comes to your next session, you're actually fairly rested and you'll find that you'll be able to move the weights a little bit easier. Another thing as well I didn't mention is you should obviously make sure that the days you're doing are not like back to back to back to back. For example, you're 5 days a week now. Before 5 of them are like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You're not giving yourself any time to have any real sort of recovery. So I would definitely personally always go by, try and have 3 days max training in a row, then have a rest. So these are things that a lot of people often overlook or may not even think about. Is make sure that the exercises you're doing on the days are in a decent order. Say, for example, you really want to progress on your bench press. That shouldn't be like the third exercise on your chest or push day, whatever your day is. It should be fairly up top. You can do it after, say, maybe a little warm up like push-ups. But in reality, it shouldn't be like third down your list if that's something you really want to progress on. The key areas you either want to progress on or weak areas you want to make bigger in terms of muscle growth should be early on in your routine rather than later. There are going to be some sessions where you may not be able to do that because like the gym's busy and you may not be able to do it and you don't want to sit around and wait. However, on a general basis, where possible, the goal would be to try to do them earlier on rather than later. So that should be enough to ideally get you sorted and on your way. But if you're someone else watching that has a similar issue, you're struggling with muscle growth or fat loss, be sure to click the links down below for my coaching. I can sort you out on a one-to-one basis. Or if you want to watch another video to learn how to lose fat in a more successful way, be sure to click up here and I'll see you guys in the next one.